I've listened to thousands of songs from amateur producers from all over the world, and even though the ideas are often good, 90% of them don't work. I'm gonna break down the 5 most common mistakes I found, and most importantly, how to fix them so your music actually connects with your listeners. Over the past 5 years, we've trained over 2,000 music producers, we've given direct feedback on thousands of songs, and the same problems show up over and over again. We've also solved these problems over and over again to help our students take their music to a completely new level. Now, there are way more than just these 5 problems, so I'm giving you the most common issues, and these are not the tricks and hacks you've heard, like roll off the low end garbage that you've probably heard before. This is gonna be real and substantive, so if you're looking for some just quick fix, then you can find another video to watch. Let's dig in. The first problem is what I call the flatline effect, and this is what happens when a song doesn't feel like it's actually going anywhere new or creative throughout the song. Now, I have a test that we use called the skip test method, where I skip around a song, usually 15 to 30 seconds ahead at a time. And if the song sounds virtually the same as I skip, then that song fails the skip test. Think about it this way. Listeners want a song that takes them somewhere. And so many amateur producers are making songs that simply do not go anywhere. If I have a song that's actually working, then as I skip around, it should be doing new things, new sounds, new ideas, or even repurposed ideas that feel different because of the context. So don't think you need to make your song feel like strobing lights or, stimulation overload. Instead, find creative ways to push your song's narrative forward. I've seen hundreds of songs, if not thousands, that make this mistake, and by simply adding even 1 or 2 elements to do something different from, verse 1 to the chorus or verse 1 to verse 2 can make a massive difference in how it feels to the listener. And that's just it. Too many producers and self-producing artists are not thinking about the listener experience or the listener's journey, right? Listeners are not paying attention to the things that you think they are. So many producers get obsessed with all these mixing tips and tricks and hacks and all these technical things, when frankly, your audience doesn't give a crap about that. They want a good song, so they could care less about the mixing tricks you used, and they want to feel like they relate to the song. So if it feels stale or bland because it's not changing or moving, then you're going to lose their attention. I want to show you a real-world example of how this actually works in one of my own songs that passes the skip test, and how it can practically work out so you can try it too. This is a song of mine called I Can Be the Villain featuring Sailor Wilterding. We're gonna go ahead and just take a listen to this and give you an example of the skip test and how throughout the song, as we're skipping around, there is change happening. I'm gonna quickly explain what those things are. So this is how the song starts.
The story's never told right, always shown from your eyes.
Okay, so far we have a vocal, really simple kind of pulsating synth, and very filtered out drums. So what happens if we just skip 15 seconds ahead?
Feel alive, you love the chase, I love the game.
All of a sudden we have more energetic drums that are coming in. We all of a sudden have some strings doing some cool staccato-y things there. The vocals are different. Okay, let's skip ahead.
Can be the villain, every hero needs a mission.
All of a sudden we got completely different sounding drums. The vocals obviously are kind of gluing this whole thing together, the way that she's singing. We have this really big sounding bass. It sounds different, right? This is obviously the chorus. It doesn't sound anything like the beginning.
The story's never told right,
All of a sudden the chorus.
if you don't have an enemy. So
We're taking you on a journey. All right, let's skip ahead a little bit.
every story needs a motive, someone you can.
So how is this different from verse 1? Let's go back to verse 1.
The story's never told right,
Verse 2.
every story needs a motive.
Vocal layers, we have an octave above. We have actual electric guitar going here. Things are moving a little bit more energetically. Let's skip ahead a little bit more.
Know that I make you feel alive, you love the chase.
Similar, now we've got a kick hitting 4 on the floor. We've got staccato strings. We've got more vocal layers. There's more energy happening. So hopefully I can be making the point pretty clearly that as we are skipping along the song, this sounds like the same song, but we're actually taking the listener on a really cool journey throughout the whole thing. The second mistake amateur producers fall victim to is poor performance. Now, I hate to say this, but a good 50% of songs I hear do not have performances that match the level of quality you need to stand out. I know that sounds harsh, but music is a performance, plain and simple. If your songs are not filled with absolutely top-notch performances, then you are almost guaranteed to lose listeners because their expectation is top notch. Think of the song that I just showed you. Sailor crushes those vocals with an insanely good performance. But I hear songs all the time, just like that, where the vocalist doesn't sound like they give a crap about what they're singing or the emotion of the song. If you're not getting performances that sound as good or better than the songs you hear on Spotify, frankly, you don't stand a chance. And I'm not talking about, do you have a voice as good as XYZ artist? Because that's 100% subjective. So I don't want you taking away from this video that, Nathan says I have to sound as good as like Beyonce, because plenty of people don't like her voice. A lot of people do like her voice. Right? That's subjective stuff. So what I'm talking about are the objective components of a performance, like rhythmic accuracy, expression, dynamics, tangible things that you can improve in. Because there are certain things you can't change. You can't just completely change the timbre of your voice, for example. Because let's be real, I don't think I have the best voice in the world, but plenty of people tell me they love my voice. And I don't think it's because I have the best tone. It's because I've gotten good at how to get a great performance in the things that I can control. Rhythmic accuracy, my expression, the emotion of how I sing, things like that. It doesn't matter how good at mixing you are. Like seriously, you gotta hear me on this. You could have the best mix in the world, and if the performances are average, your listeners will not care. Too many producers think that mixing is the magic, and mixing is objectively not the magic, right? This is music, and music involves performance. This means your instruments need to be in the pocket. In other words, completely in time, rhythmically. Your instruments need to be performed at a high level. Good intonation, proper tuning, great expression, all of this. I hear tracks all the time where the guitars are out of time, the vocals are rushing, the vocals sound like the singer doesn't care about what the song is about, the keyboards sound like the producer doesn't know what quantization is, things like that. All of this is fixable, by the way. And for vocals, goodness, if I could get $1 every time I hear a song with sub-average vocal performances, I would have a good chunk of fun money. It's wild how many producers think they can just tune a bad vocal to sound amazing. Friends, that's not a thing. A great vocal performance will still need tuning, but you cannot take a bad performance and just magically make it awesome. It's just not gonna happen. Which is also why I get really irritated when people are like, auto-tune can make, anyone sound good. It's just not true. This requires you to be paying very close attention to the details to make sure you get performances that are worth recording. Remember, a song you produce is permanent, so make performances worth being permanent. Or else you're gonna be frustrated that your songs sound amateur next to your reference tracks, assuming you reference, and you'll be tempted to think, maybe I just need more compression. No. You need better performances. Mistake number 3, overcrowded arrangement. We have so many notes to work with, like just actual pitches to work with. And for some reason, a lot of producers think that every instrument needs to be in the exact same range and register as every other instrument. And even if they aren't actively thinking that, it's what ends up happening, and we see this over and over again. If you have a piano in the mid-range and then a guitar in that same octave, and you stuff a vocal in that same range, you got a synth in there too, guess what? That is a big mess. And then the producers say, my mix sounds bad. No, your arrangement is overblown in the mid-range. And this is most common in the mid-range too, or the low mids as well, because as you go higher in register and in pitch, there's less issues because of the overtone series, which is incredibly nerdy, and I'm not gonna go into it in this video, but there are reasons why anyways. Instead, what you can do is spread your instruments out in terms of pitch. So maybe piano is in the mid-range as that primary instrument. You have the guitar positioned slightly above the piano, and the synth is a little bit higher, than the guitar, etc., etc. So you can actually get really strategic about how you are like intermingling all of your parts in terms of pitch. And I'm not saying that every single instrument, every single track has to be in its own exact little pocket here. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that we see this all the time where people are just stuffing the low mids and stuffing the mids, and then it's too much. And then it becomes a total nightmare to mix, and then you're gonna be tempted to blame EQ on all of your problems. A lot of these issues, by the way, are like symptomatic issues. In other words, a lot of producers will say, my mix is muddy, right? And then they think that that is then a mixing thing. No, the symptom is you hear mess, you hear muddiness. But the actual cause of that symptom is something much, much earlier in the process. And this is what I'm trying to get to. And by the way, this happens like 80 to 90% of the time. People will say, I have this problem over here. The mix is this, the mix is that, the mix. Those are symptoms. Those are symptoms. The cause is usually somewhere much earlier in the process. So my suggestion, arrange like mixing doesn't exist. Like seriously, if you just work that way, way, your life will be much easier. And I'm not saying act as though mixing doesn't exist, right? I've had that question. I'm saying make decisions as if your arrangement will handle a lot of the heavy lifting instead of mixing doing that heavy lifting. A good way of gauging if you are ready to mix is, does your song already sound great? And if the song doesn't already sound great before mixing, you're not ready to mix. So you need to think about how you arrange a bit more strategically, you know? In other words, think about how you lay out your instruments and sounds vertically, spread out over pitch, so they're not constantly competing with each other. If you take a part and just bump it up an octave, you might find it immediately clears up all of the mess. And then you're like, wow, I can't believe how much better that sounds. Your sounds need to have space carved out for them so they are working together rather than feeling that they're in a boxing match with each other. And this problem is unbelievably common. It's also one of those mistakes that if you just fix it, it can literally sound like you just solved the world's biggest math problem and is super satisfying. By the way, I keep talking about students and helping producers and self-producing artists, and here's the thing. As I film right now, we're looking for about 5 more producers who are serious about their music, who want to spend 3 months working directly with us and are sick and tired of having problems that you can't even diagnose. If that's you, then you can go ahead and schedule a call. We have a link below in the description. And if you're like, Nathan, how do I know you can help me? Well, we actually don't even offer you to join if we don't think we can. If you're not ready or not a good fit, we'll let you know. But we've helped a lot of producers like Colin, who was stuck for 4 years and in his first week with us put out a song that has nearly 200,000 streams right now.
I made a song from scratch in a week after I hadn't made a song in 4 years. I made that song in 2 days. I was like, okay, the song I made in 2 days, and then freaking can't make a song for 4 years that I like. It's wild to me.
That's one example of many, many examples of students having success. So moving on to mistake number 4. This is actually mixing related. It's not having a killer vocal mix. Vocal mixing is the one part of mixing that does require knowledge and understanding. And if you do not know how to approach mixing vocals, you know, with EQ, compression, reverbs, delay, saturation, etc., then you're gonna have a really hard time making songs that sound professional. Because here's the thing, your vocals are gonna sound pretty lame when they're not mixed, even if they are recorded well and even if they are performed really well. And that's because vocals must be processed to sound like they belong anywhere near Spotify. Here's the no BS way I approach vocal mixing literally 90% of the time. I'm just gonna straight up do it for you on camera so you can see how ridiculously simple and fast it is. Also, if you're confused because of how fast I'm going, I made a whole video just on vocal processing you can watch too. Let's do it. So I have a session pulled up right here that is just finished with production. This is not mixed yet, and so we're gonna be able to take a look at how I go about handling a vocal mix. I'm gonna do this extremely fast. Let's do it. This is how it sounds right now, unmixed. This is verse 2.
When I look in my mind, I find you there every time.
All right, so obviously these vocals, they sound very raw. They don't sound like they fit the context of the track. We're gonna fix that. Actually, one of the first things I would do in this case is I would go in here and I would clip gain a couple of these moments real fast like this to just boost the gain. And you can see now the volume of this is gonna be more similar to the volume over here. What this is gonna do is make sure that they're hitting the compressors very, very similarly. Now, this part here, it's all one phrase, and so I'm not gonna worry about that in this particular case. It's totally fine. So let's get started. Now, the first thing I do is I like to ask myself the question, are there any frequencies that need to get cut or roll off? Now, I don't think I'm gonna have to in this case, but we're gonna take a listen.
When I look in my mind.
So there are no frequencies that are standing out to me as being problematic. So a lot of times I'm listening for lows, low mids, and any weird tonal frequencies in the uppers as well. I'm not really hearing any of that right now. Now, some of those things might pop up as we compress. So the first thing I'm going to do is compress, and I like going with a very transparent compression at the beginning, and I'm gonna hit about 3 to 5 dB of compression, depending on how it sounds.
When I look in my mind, I find you there every time.
Nice. The second thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to de-ess. I'm using the de-esser plugin from Black Salt Audio. Love this thing. And I'm just gonna push the threshold down and find a moment where she says an S or a T.
Every time.
So it's not hitting when she says time.
Time. Here we stay.
Okay, yeah, so that's a little bit too much. The last thing you want is for it to sound lispy, so I'm just pushing the threshold until it starts to cut some of those S's. Her vocal doesn't sound particularly bad, so not super necessary. The next thing I'm gonna do is go with some sort of either additive EQ or multi-band compression.
When I look,
In this case, I think I'm actually gonna go with smooth operator because I can kind of kill two birds with one stone.
when I look in my mind, I find you there every time.
Yeah, so when she gets in the lower range, I'm actually noticing some more of those frequencies that we might want to just kind of dip a little bit around 200.
Every time.
That sounds really nice. Now what I would like is a little bit more sparkle on her vocal. This is a really dreamy kind of ethereal style, and so I want her vocal to have a little bit of air on it. So I'm gonna use two plugins to do this. The first is Radiator and SciQ. Radiator is a preamp emulation. I'm gonna be able to push a little bit of the treble on this, and then I'm using SciQ, which is a vintage style EQ. I'm just gonna push the highs and then potentially push the drive depending on how it sounds. Let's take a listen.
When I look in my mind, I find you there.
Okay, so I actually just realized I need to push that fader down. That's fine. All right, now I need some more makeup gain on this.
Every time. Here we stay, running free from villains like reality.
Now the problem is I'm starting to hear that her vocal is sounding a little bit brittle.
Every time.
So that was coming from Radiator, so I'm just gonna push that off.
Here we stay, running free from villains like
Yeah, so we just don't want it to sound too brittle and thin.
every time.
And then finally, I am going to add an 1176 on here just to give us a little bit more of a squeeze.
Every time. Here we stay, running free.
The last thing that we need to do is add our effects. This would be reverbs, delays, things like that. But for the purposes of this video, I just want to show you how I can get an incredible sounding, just 85% there without even having to worry about reverbs, delays. But I'm going to show you what happens if we just throw a single reverb on here.
When I look in my mind, I find you there every time.
Let's just listen to what this sounded like before. I'll push the gain up so it matches.
When I look in my mind.
Not even close. This is what I'm talking about. So here's the thing, if you don't mix the vocal right and try using some trashy Logic preset, you're just gonna ruin it. It's gonna sound like it's coming out of a megaphone. Please don't do that. Just don't use the Logic presets. They're terrible. Also, one of our students, Paige, is just more proof that if the only thing you learn about mixing is volume and vocal mixing, you can still get some pretty great sounding music still. 2 months ago, she was a complete beginner. Her first song sounded like this.
You might disagree, but I ain't too worried. My responsibilities are 0 to none.
And now, only 2 months later, by the way, she made this.
But I've never let my guard down with you. You saw your chance and took your shot. I tried to run, but I got caught now.
So don't tell me you can't see radical improvement without having to suffer for 5 years and 10,000 hours of experience, because she just proves what we've been saying all along, which is that if you understand the most important things and ignore everything else, then you can make some pretty great sounding music. Also evidence that what we do works. Just saying. Now, does she still have growing to do? Heck yes. She isn't even done with her program yet. But that's what I would call a huge transformation from someone who didn't know how to install plugins 2 months ago. That brings us to mistake number 5. This is also a mixing issue. You see, I don't hate mixing. I just want to make sure you guys aren't busy wasting time on crap that isn't even a mixing problem. I'm trying to help you. Mistake number 5 is not automating aggressively. And by automating, I mean like everything. Automating volume is one of the most underutilized mixing techniques that amateurs just do not do. And trust me, pros are doing this. And I get it, okay? So many people don't do it because it's not fun, it's boring, it doesn't feel exciting. Guess what? If you want to make great sounding music, get over yourself and do the things that are not fun that actually make your music sound great. In fact, this very topic came up on one of our coaching calls like a week ago, where 2 separate students had this exact issue. And then when I showed how much better it sounds when you automate, they were like, completely mind blown. Automation is not a suggestion, in my opinion. This is my opinion, okay? My opinion. If you look at literally any mix I've done in the past very long time, then you can see a literal crap ton of automation. Yes, that is the technical term. Write it down, crap ton. Just look at a couple of these screenshots of sessions. This one, this one, this one, this one. These are all just like recent things I've worked on. There's automation just absolutely everywhere. Automation is how we take things and bring them front and center. So if you do not automate, then everything is just like stagnant. It's just gonna be like this. That's boring, right? If you have really cool things happening instrumentally, then you are going to have to use automation to draw attention to those things. Verse 1, you got this piano thing going on. Cool, automate that up. And then verse 2, the piano is less important. Automate that down. And then you got a guitar riff going on here. Automate that up. And then the vocal thing happens here. Automate that up. Oh, I have a vocal throw here that then something else vocally happens. Automate that so we can adjust the actual way that it interacts with the track. Hey, I'm using a different reverb in the chorus than I'm using in the verses. Automate that. Oh, I have a little bit of a gap in the vocal where I sing a little line and then there's a pause. I sing another line. Anyway, in between those lines, you're gonna automate the reverb up because sing a little line, 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 and then automate down, sing another line, line. Look at me, I'm making a fool for myself just to explain how this works to you. None of this is scripted. My point here is that automation can take a song that sounds good and make it actually exciting. Really, really exciting. And the example from one of our students was they had this really cool like string thing going on. It only happened every 4 bars. It was this really, really, really cool moment. And every time it happened, it's like that thing is just buried. You can kind of hear it, but not really. It's like, you gotta automate that up. You know what I mean? You gotta bring that up. So like, this is a really cool thing. Listeners, when they listen to your song, again, I talk about this so much. You need to think about the journey that your listener is experiencing. So many producers and artists are so self-obsessed and self-absorbed about the thing that you want that you don't even stop to consider what is the actual experience from your listener. Don't you care what your listeners think? Don't you want people to be entertained?
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Sorry, I had to. The thing is your audience actually wants to feel like the song is relating to them, is connecting to them. So you need to start caring more about how your audience actually enjoys the music. Guess what? When an audience hears your song, you need to spoon feed it to them. It is up to you. It is up to me when we make music to tell the audience, this is the most important element in this song. This is the most important element right now. And then it becomes this, and then it becomes this. And look at how the reverb comes up here. And they're not gonna know any of what you're doing behind the scenes. They don't give a crap what you're doing behind the scenes. All they care about is, do I like this song? Does this sound cool? Does this make me feel something? Do I want to get up and dance? Do I want to sit and cry my eyes out because man, that song just spoke to me in a way that it got to the feels, you know what I'm saying? We are crafting emotion with our music. And believe it or not, the way we automate, the way we make decisions over time can play a massive role in how your audience will feel. So if you're like, Nathan, I want to take my music to the next level and I'm tired of doing it myself, then seriously, click below, apply to work with us directly. We don't bite. See you soon.